wait, I didn't get that one.
But you know, it is better than the soundings from the island.
Yeah. Why, you don't read that? I can't wait for it.
Are they doing it all together? Or
Yeah,
no, we're going to do it all together. I'm just going to call the judge up, turn it over to him, and let him take it. So he'll just say, fill in your position when you get to that point? That's right.
I blank state your name. All right, let's.
Good morning and Happy New Year. The meeting will come to order. We are holding our first regularly scheduled meeting held January 6, 2009 at 9 a.m. And at this time I will call on our Public Works Director, Mr. Jim Davis, to give the invocation, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Commissioner Joe Flesher, our Vice Chair. Please rise.
Almighty God, we give thanks for this new year and the challenges that it brings. We acknowledge that difficult tasks exercise our minds, strengthen our resolve, sharpen our senses, and give us opportunity to create a more efficient government. Give our leaders and staff wisdom this year to meet these challenges and throughout the coming year in this county. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join with me in the pledge to our great nation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time we have a rather special occasion. We have the opportunity to swear in our constitutional officers. And at this time, I will call on Indian River County Judge Joe Wild, the Honorable Judge Joe Wild. Your Honor, I will turn it over to you and let you take control from here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to go ahead and invite the candidates who are going to be our new office holders to come on up to the front so they can be placed under oath. If you want to bring any family members with you, you're welcome to do that. And if you just want to line up over here, I think that'll be an appropriate spot for you.
Dave, I'm glad to see you dressed up for the occasion.
Mr. Chair, he's got to get right back to work.
Mr. Chairman, he's coming out of retirement.
Oh, mercy.
In any event, I don't see Ms. Clem here, so I guess we'll go ahead and proceed. Without her, we can do that later with Ms. Clem. I am obviously honored to be part of this ceremony, be invited to come here and perform the oath of office for you. I know it formalizes the beginning of your new terms of office, and I know you're excited about that, and particularly two of you, Ms. Jordan and Mr. Lohr. I know you are looking forward with much excitement to the possibilities that you have before you as you start on your new office. I want to encourage the both of you to continue to strive to live up to the oath that you're about to take, which is going to ask that you faithfully and well perform your public duties, and I know you'll do that. And for the other two of you that are here, Mr. Barton and Mr. Nolte, you all are obviously continuing in your public service to our community. You've done that well in the past. We've been blessed by your service in the offices that you have. All of your offices have their difficulties as far as what you need to do to perform. I mean, Ms. Jordan indicated she brought a Bible with her, and tax collectors haven't been popular since biblical times. Mr. Barton deals with people that are already mad at each other. They get there, and Lord, here, don't you have better things to do instead of hassling me? And Mr. Nolte, nobody wants their property valued fairly. That's your job to do. And we appreciate the jobs that you both have done in the past, and we look forward to what Ms. Jordan and Mr. Lohr will accomplish in the future. I know I look forward, in my position as county judge, I look every day forward to going to that job. But I think what makes it most enjoyable for me is that I get to say, instead of just county judge, I'm county judge of Indian River County. We have the best community in the state, and part of that reason is the folks who serve as public officials in this community. And so we hope you'll uphold that tradition in the next 4 years. So let's go ahead and do those oaths and get you started on your jobs. I've given you a copy of those oaths, and let's start with Mr. Lohr. And if you'll raise your right hand, sir, and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida. That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state. And that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Sheriff of Indian River County on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
That I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Sheriff of Indian River County on which I am now about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations. Okay, let's go to Ms. Jordan next. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida.
the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida.
That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state.
That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state.
And that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of tax collector of Indian River County on which I am now about to enter, so help me God.
And that I will faithfully and well perform the duties of tax collector of Indian River County on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations. Okay, let's go to Mr. Barton next. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida. That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state. And that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of clerk of the Circuit Court of Indian River County on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
And I will well and faithfully perform the duties of clerk of the Circuit Court of Indian River County on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations. And we'll do Mr. Nolte next. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida.
the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida.
That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state.
That I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state.
And that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of property appraiser of Indian River County on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
And I will faithfully perform the duties of property appraiser of Indian River County on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations. I don't know if Ms. Clem has arrived or not yet. Then I'm done with my duties at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, and thank you to all
Thank you.
the honorable elected constitutional people.
The room is going to clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations, Carol D. Thank you, Carol.
We'll take a brief recess for about 2 minutes, then we'll reconvene. That was nice, wasn't it? That was good. Okay, at this time, the meeting will come back to order, and we have our supervisor of elections here, and I understand that Chester was the reason why y'all were late, so welcome, Kay. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Judge Wild.
He wants you around over here a little bit more. Okay. All right, Kay, we're going to swear you in for another term, so if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida,
the Constitution and the government of the United States and Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state,
that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Supervisor of Elections of Indian River County, on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Supervisor of Elections of Indian River County, on which I am now about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Kay. Okay, Commissioners, at this time, is there any additions to or emergency items to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add an announcement under, I guess, item 5, proclamations and presentations.
Okay. Under item 5, that would be Commissioner O'Brien. All right. Seeing no objections, I'll be more than happy to honor that.
Move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. I've got a motion to approve the agenda as amended, a motion from Commissioner O'Brien and a second from Commissioner Solari. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That moves us to the approval of the minutes, which we have none at this time. And then go ahead, Commissioner O'Brien, with your announcement.
Thank you. Just so everybody will know, the University of Florida Marching Band is, as we speak, on their way here to Vero Beach. They will be performing a rehearsal for the halftime show they'll be performing at the National Championship game down in Miami. The band will be performing at the Vero Beach High School Citrus Bowl about 1:30, and it's open to the public. It's free. It's a great chance to come out and show support for the band and for the Fighting Gators as they go down to whoop up on Oklahoma in the National Championship game. So Chairman Davis has promised this meeting will be over by 1 o'clock so that we can all get there to watch the Fighting Gator Marching Band do their halftime show. So come on out and show some support. It should be a fun time.
Absolutely. And I really am in awe of Commissioner O'Brien's humble enthusiasm about this. And the reason why I say that is his son is, in fact, in the University of Florida's marching band. So absolutely.
No trombones.
Absolutely. So I'm just as proud as I can say I know somebody in the band, you know, so that's great. And absolutely, thank you for adding that to the agenda, Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you.
That moves us to the informational items, and of course there's no action on that. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. I would like to pull item L.
I'd like to pull F.
F as in Frank.
F Foxtrot.
Okay.
And P Papa.
P Papa. We've got LFP.
And I think we need to pull item D because there's two applicants there.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Absolutely. That got past me. Anything else? We'll pull LFP and D. We'll discuss them in the order as pulled. We'll start off with, I tell you what, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent as amended.
Second. Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien to approve the consent agenda as amended and seconded from Commissioner Fletcher. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. We'll move now on to item L, which is page 198 through 212 in the backup. And the only concern that I had with this is the cost of the sand. And I don't know whether they have anybody in here from Public Works or not, but having been for the past year very involved in the whole process of the mining industry, the cost of that sand seems pretty, unless we're getting drain-filled quality sand. I mean, I know there's different grades of sand and different qualities of sand, but if we're getting general fill, where it appears to me that we're paying about twice what we should be if it's general fill, but it's right in line with market in the event that it's drain-filled quality sand. Chris, can you help me with this at all?
Yeah, the contractor, H&J Construction, had got bids from Fisher for 4 different pits that they have throughout the county. The one on 99th Street, just west of US 1, was $4.25 per cubic yard. You add the tax onto that, then there's $2.45 for hauling. And then they put their standard 15% profit, and that comes out to the $8.05.
Okay, I was under the impression the 15% was in addition to the $8.
No,
Okay.
there was other pits that they had that were actually a lower price per cubic yard, but because of the hauling distance, it ended up being higher.
Okay. All right, very well. That was my question.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question on that too, and my understanding is that the cost of the material might be a little high. So, Chris, can we just have the contractor go back and maybe bid a couple other mines to make sure this is a correct price? I think the $2.45 or the $2.50 trucking fee is in line with what I've been hearing is the industry standard right now, but the $4.55 base price for just general fill is a couple bucks too high. So if they can go back and reshoot that and get a couple of different bids, because, you know, 23,000 yards at a couple bucks is a good chunk of money. So,
Would you want us to bring that back to the board then for approval?
Yes.
yeah, I wouldn't mind having it come back, actually.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Updated bids on the fill.
Okay. I know that the contractor is out there and needing fill as we speak, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, you can have that back to us next Tuesday.
I believe I can, yes.
Well, then I would move that we table item L until next Tuesday with an updated bid on the fill.
Okay.
Second that.
Got a motion from Commissioner O'Brien to table item L and a second from Commissioner Fleischer. The motion to table is not debatable nor amendable, so we'll go straight to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Now we'll move on to item F. Item F was pulled by Commissioner Wheeler, if I'm not mistaken.
Myself.
And Commissioner Fleischer.
My concern with that is first, I'm not, in fact, I wanted to get with David this morning and find out how much they're paying on that property in taxes annually right now. And I'm not so sure that banking this property is in the best interest of the county at this point. Secondly, I think the appraisals are probably high. We've got a lot of vacant commercial property and vacant commercial buildings, and we'll be taking something off the tax roll. And also, my understanding of appraisals, when they do them on prior sales. And I think there hasn't been enough sales for probably the market value of this stuff to kick in, because I have to believe, I'm not an appraiser, but I have to believe that this price is probably high for today's market. And I just think first, it's too much money to pay. And secondly, I think that I'd like not to take it off the tax rolls right now and just set on it. And even though our master plan has certain aspects in it, you know, as we go through this and the county grows in different areas and stuff, we even may want to have other satellites rather than main libraries. I don't know the answer to that. I know that we've got a master plan that's several years old, but those are my thoughts.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And I pulled it for the very same reason, as well as I know the PJ had said that I was concerned about $250,000. It was $750,000, $750,000 that we're looking to purchase property with no plan and no vision for at least 5 to 10 years. When I discussed this with Joe, when it first come on the consent agenda, he said we're just looking for appraisals to see where we're at. Now it's on the consent agenda with a signed contract for $750,000, and I believe that that's a little less than 50% of what's left of the library impact fees, and I believe we've already removed libraries from the impact fees at a previous meeting. So, such being the case, we're waning down to about $1.25 million, and I just feel very uncomfortable about purchasing land with a pond in the center, 2 acres of property that we don't anticipate using for quite some time. I believe that we do have an ample library. We have another joint partnership in the mid-county, and we have a great library system, and I believe that it's errant to invest in land at this time.
Any other comments, Commissioners?
Just have a question, I guess, for Joe. If we don't spend the impact fee money, what happens if 2 or 3 or 4 more years goes by and we haven't spent that? Isn't there a statutory time frame that we have to expend those funds, or will, I guess?
6 years.
Okay, and how much longer? I mean, probably a lot of these impact fees were collected 3 or 4 years ago, I would imagine. So
We only put library impact fees in place about 2 years ago, so we've got another 4 years.
you have 4 more years?
Yes.
Okay.
And we don't have a problem if the board, we're going to have to reevaluate all our capital plans. You know, they all, like Commissioner Wheeler and Commissioner Fleischer said, we have capital plans in place. However, our revenue stream is dried up considerably. And this is a board decision. We wouldn't have a problem if the board put it on hold.
Would this be coming fully out of impact fees?
Yes, we're taking the entire amount out of library impact fee fund.
Okay. Mr. Gross, you have something you'd like to add? Welcome.
Yes, I'm George Gross. I live at 1230 39th Avenue, Vero Beach. I'm a former member of the Library Advisory Committee, having been on there for at least 4 years. I was there when the County Commission approved a economic study for the future libraries as to where the library should be. When the report was made, all of the committee did not agree with the recommendations, and specifically the one having to do with the North County. I think a moment of review of the library system is appropriate. The library system was a private operation really until 1985. A portion of the funds did come from the county and from the city, but in general, it was staffed by volunteers until 1985. At that time, Pat Lyons on the county commission was more or less the honcho for getting an up-to-date library system. At the time, what was recommended by studies called the Beach Study, Pat felt that the community could not accept the proposed budget to build 2 libraries. So he convinced, no, actually the newspaper convinced him to reduce the cost of those 2 libraries by $2 million. And Pat Lyons at that time said, we'll make up the difference in about 5 years. Well, it took about 5 years before we even had the 2 facilities. The most recent expansion, both of the North County and the main library, there was not sufficient money to do either one what wanted to be done. And again, drawings went back to the architects in order to comply with the funds that were available. In fact, as you recall, we expanded both the North Library and the main library, when the truth of the matter is, what was on the anticipated was actually 3 libraries, including one down in South County, but there wasn't enough money for even the 2. As far as activities are concerned, I think quite often the facilities in the North County are inadequate to handle the number of people that show up. And of course, we talk about hard times, and where are the people going for hard times? What can they afford to do? One thing they can afford to do is to go to the library. And if you look at the amount of people that do go, both to North County and the main county, you will find that there is an absolutely amazing increase in the participation of the people, because this is one thing that they can do and not cost. In fact, it's also quite interesting in some of the recent hurricanes. Fortunately, at least I know the main library had power restored very quickly. And this is where the people could go for, not only for creature comfort because it was air conditioned, but also to occupy their mind and get off of their worries of living without any electricity. I feel that even the recommendation of the experts to move to US 1, I said at the time, I still say today, it's the wrong direction. It's not where Sebastian's expanding. It's not with Fellsmere expanding. And the operations that they have there are being utilized not only by Fellsmere, not only by Sebastian, but also by Southern County to the north of us. What is the advantage of taking the structure and the investment that we have today and moving to US 1? And where and when are you going to be able to buy enough property in order to do what needs to be done? In those days, it's amazing that some of the philosophy of those who were in charge of the funds said, well, we don't want to spend our money on land, we want to spend our money on the books. True. But if you have no place to park, how are the people going to utilize those facilities? And the original plot of land at North County was very much insufficient as far as parking, and additional land had to be bought from the commercial outfit immediately to the east of that, and paid one hellacious cost for that new land compared to the original land they have now. The fact that this is costing $750,000, at least that's what's in the paper, I don't know. I haven't followed it recently. In fact, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't read the paper. I feel that it would be the wrong thing to do not to buy that piece of land, because it has so much of a future. Yes, future. Where's the money coming from? It is not, I don't believe you can sit here and anticipate what the future is. But the point is, we have an investment. The people are used to coming to that facility, and they will continue to come to that facility if it can be expanded to handle the crowds. So I urge you, by all means, to approve the recommendation of purchasing that land. I am subject I will be glad to ask any of your questions for clarity of anything that I have said.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Thank you for coming down. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Gross? Seeing none, any further discussion of the board?
No,
Okay.
not for me.
Tom, any other
I
comments?
think everything has been said. Obviously, it was done as a plan for future land acquisition to have that land reserved for future expansion. We certainly don't have any plans in the immediate future to expand the library for two reasons. One, we don't have the funds to go to capital construction. And number two, there's an operational expense that we're not at this point in time prepared to deal with given the economic situation. So it was merely a planning. It was trying to just set some land aside for future expansion.
Commissioners, I'd like to weigh in on this if I could. It's clearly right in the middle of an area that, and Mr. Gross said it very, very well. I mean, you have the Vero Lake Estates use the facility for community meetings. You have community groups go in there and use that facility for meetings as well as a spot for the high school and the middle school to be able to do their studying. It is a very well utilized facility, and I see that potential growing. I agree with what Commissioner's saying about appraisals, though. You are right. It's like driving a vehicle and looking in the rearview mirror is what an appraisal is in this instance. So versus shooting it down, I don't know whether we'd like to play realtor and make a counteroffer of some kind or something, but I really do think that we need to try to secure some long-term vision in this process to be able to expand that facility because it's clearly going to be needed. And as far as having the small sites in a whole bunch of areas, I believe Felsmer is going to probably start to take care of their own in that light. I think Sebastian, perhaps with our help with some of the Marion Fell Library as it expands. I know that we obviously have the one at the south end of the county and the one at the Mueller Center fixing to come online. This is just in the right spot. It's right there near the corner of 510 and 512, conveniently located. And I'd certainly not like to see us shoot it down. I'd like to try to do something to secure this site.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Wheeler.
Yeah, I got a comment, but I'd like to ask Mr. Baird a question first. Assuming this is worth $750,000, I know it's appraised at on the rolls, but what does that amount to in annual taxes on commercial property, Joe?
I don't know the exact number in that area, but we usually use $15 per thousand, so it's probably around 10. Now, I don't know what it's valued at on the rolls, which is a big difference usually.
Commissioner, did the rule of thumb typically on a piece of property like that is about 2% is what your tax bill is going to be?
That's what I thought.
That's typically what it is.
$15,000 a year.
Yeah, and of course, so what does that mean to the county and the cities? And then you break that out to the school district. Half of it goes to the school district, and half of it goes to the other municipalities, and of that, 25% comes to the county typically. That's just the rule of thumb, not exact.
And then you multiply that by 5 or 10 years. And I'm not saying that this isn't I just think that it's overpriced for the market right now. It also comes off the rolls, and I also believe that, obviously anything could happen, and perhaps I would look short-sighted in the future depending on what happens, but I believe that right now is the time to wait and maybe look at that property in a year or two or renegotiate the price, because I think it's overpriced.
Would you like to throw out a price to renegotiate?
Well, I'm not an appraiser, but, so I'd be stabbing in the dark, but...
my opinion of appraisals is you can justify just about any appraisal.
Right.
I mean, and so you're right on point with what you're saying. I do not dispute what the appraisals have found. I think they can be right. But at the same time, you can find one that could be more and one could be less. It's simple, just an opinion of value, and it's easy to back those up.
What do I make a motion to go back and renegotiate? And if there's, because my second spot from that would be to make a motion to not buy it.
Would you like to throw a price to renegotiate at, or do you feel?
Well, I don't know. I just think that a lot of the appraisals coming in now, they're starting to readjust because of the drop in the market, but an awful lot of them haven't readjusted because there hasn't been enough sales. The other thing, by the county paying a large price for a piece of property, we're helping keeping the appraisals up and above market value. And because, government's more apt to pay a lot more for property than in the past, that's been my experience, or for anything for that matter, than a lot of private industry pays.
I'll just throw it out. I mean, I just conducted an auction up in the area, and it was not too far out of line. That was a 1.3 acre parcel versus what we have right here. Probably a more desirable location than what we have right here, and by the time you average those out, this is really not, in my opinion, too far out of line with market. But I'm only one of 5.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I see you looking at a number and not having the benefit of to be an appraiser. Just looking at this objectively, we have 2 appraisals. We have one at $750,000 and one at $800,000. The $750,000 was presented to the property owner, and I understand you have a signed contract on the property owner's end. We've just recently discussed the fact that we're looking at about $15,000 a year off the tax rolls, and with up to 10 years of loss of that on the tax rolls, I believe our concern is about $150,000. So such being the case, why not provide a counteroffer of $600,000, and that removes the fear of the $150,000 tax loss, and in addition, it's still leaning towards the lowest appraisal. Looking at the appraisals, I didn't agree with some of the information and data presented by the appraisal people and some of the justification, but I most certainly would be willing to look at that, not to lose the opportunity and greatly reduce it and give more of a benefit to the taxpayer.
Is that a motion?
Motion of 600.
$600,000 is a motion.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Flesher and a second from Commissioner Wheeler to counteroffer at $600,000. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Takes care of item F. Thank you, Mr. Frame. Next, we have item P, as in Papa, and that was pulled, if I'm not mistaken, by Commissioner Flesher or Commissioner Brown?
Myself.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead.
On which item?
Item P.
P. Papa. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That'd be 233 to 257 in your back.
Yes, and my concern here is that Devasta Homes LP has requested an extension of 6 months, and they were unable to complete. We have a letter of credit. They're asking for a continuance. I most certainly appreciate their dedication to the continuance, and would like to see that accomplished. The concern I have is that this is a one-time shot. They're requesting a 6 months time. I'd like to see, with the caveat of having it CC'd at the end of that 6 months, and that this is a one-time request. There are a lot of local people in the trade that would be tripping over this opportunity if we did pull that, and I did not want to say that I'd like to pull that letter of credit. I'd like to give the opportunity to Devasta. Devasta does not hire many local people in the trade, and I'm looking out for our community. And with that said, I have no problem with the extension, so long as the job is completed and we have a CC, and we take it from there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a question for Will. Aren't we in litigation with Devasta?
We're in litigation with respect to concurrency investing of traffic. We're not in litigation with respect to any aspect of the development or their performance of the development. It's really a matter of what entitlements they have under their approvals with respect to investing traffic on roads. It has nothing to do with them completing the project.
So that whatever we do here won't impact our other litigation, or
No.
If we do grant them the extension, would that be favorable for us, or, I mean, do we have a bargaining chip here, or?
Well, I think the staff's position is that if we pull the letter of credit, then we're in the position of going out to bid to complete the work. My understanding, and Mr. Ward can correct me, is that they're 90% complete on the work, and it's more of a punch list type thing, and rather than the county getting into the business of project work out, the staff supports an extension to allow them to complete the work. They've extended their letter of credit an additional 6 months to guarantee that the security, if they don't perform, is there, and that's why we're recommending approval of the extension.
Commissioners, any other comments before I turn it over to Yes, sir. Please give your name and address for the record.
My name is Chris Ward of 564 7th Square, Vero Beach, Florida. I work for DeVosta Homes. That is correct. All of the improvements are completed. All the common area sidewalks are in. The roads are put in minus the final lift. All the landscaping's been put in. There's just some minor lake bank repairs that we're need to get completed, and just add some sod on those lake banks, and very minor punch list stuff that we're working with engineering and planning right now to work out. We think we should have it wrapped up in the next 3 months. So we think it's real minor, and that's why we just asked for the extension to take care of it.
So you fully anticipate being able to apply for the certificate of completion within just a few months as opposed to the 6 months?
We feel pretty confident that it will be completed before this contract expires, this extension.
And you don't anticipate any further requests for any extension?
No, sir, we do not.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion from Commissioner Flesher. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second from Commissioner Solari. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That moves us to item D, as in Delta, and that was pulled by Commissioner O'Brien, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think actually it's kind of in your court here as liaison to the Historical Resources Committee. You placed 2 applications for an open position. And I guess my understanding there's only 1 open position, so we need to choose from one of the 2 applications. Is that correct?
That is correct, and it's not uncommon for us to get some conflicts on something like this. And so basically, Commissioners, I can't make a motion or anything like that, but we would be more than happy to.
Well, as a liaison, do you have a recommendation, or?
They're both qualified candidates. Are either of the candidates here today, and or would like to speak? Commissioners, I'm at your pleasure on this.
Mr. Chair, well, you've had the opportunity to work with these individuals, or perhaps maybe provide us with some input other than the applications here, because they're both appear to be qualified.
Okay. Let's see.
There is limited information on the applications, but
well, gentlemen,
Mr. Chairman,
have to work with the team.
Yeah,
I see where Ms. Armistead has had prior experience and background serving on the County Historical Society. She's been in the area since '96, so a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more familiar with some of the things. The other gentleman has only been here for 2 years. So given her longer residence period and her previous time serving on the Historical Society, I'd move to appoint Miss Elizabeth H. Armistead to the County Historical Resources Advisory Committee.
Got a motion and a second. Thank you, Commissioners. And is there any further discussion or comment from the public? Please, if you have anything to say.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just in the future, could we have these not on the consent agenda? Because this is something which needed action.
Action that-
I didn't understand it that way.
Sure.
But that we were going to take action on it
Yeah,
today.
we can do that.
In the future, if it could be on another part of the.
Absolutely. Yes. That way we don't have to pull it. We can go straight to the vote on it. Is there if there's no further discussion, we've got a motion from Ms. Armistead from Commissioner O'Brien and a second from Commissioner Wheeler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. That completes the consent agenda. And now we will move on to constitutional public hearings and now public discussion items. Mr. Frank Zort. Mr. Zort. We'll move on, and if Mr. Zort shows up, we'll be more than happy to allow him to speak. This time we have the Community Development Matters. I do not see any there. And then now we have request County Attorney matter. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We received a request last week from Foster IRC Limited Liability Company for an extension to a contract that they had entered into with the county to place lot fill in a subdivision known as Huntington Trace. The agreement gave them 2 years to complete the lot filling to 75% of finished grade, and the date of expiration will be January 12th, 2009, which is a few days out from now. they came with a timely request for an extension, and I spoke with our engineering department and our planning department about the status of the project. Apparently, no fill has been put in the past 2 years. Our engineers seem concerned that if the property isn't filled, it's likely to convert into an emergent wetland, which would have difficulty filling. Now, our recommendation had been that no extension be granted, in part because the deed restrictions with respect to the property don't allow any extensions to the fill period to be granted by either the developer or the association to a lot owner. I think one of the good situations here is, my understanding is only 4 lots have been sold, so the developer has substantial control of the project. Since the agenda item was written, I've spoken to their attorney, Mr. Taylor, about the possibility of another design option rather than filling the lots above grade, and that would involve inserting culverts to collect rainwater along side lot lines, collecting them in pipes and outfalling them to lakes. Such a design has not been put together, submitted, or reviewed at this point, and I think we really have a couple of options. The contract, which will be in default next week, allows a cure period of 120 days to complete the fill, and the way we've structured this agenda item, they could also submit a redesign that would require a replat, since the necessary drainage easements aren't on the current plat. They may need more than 120 days to do that. We haven't heard exactly how long an extension they want, but the applicant's here with their attorney, and they may be able to address what kind of a time frame they see as being necessary to re-engineer the project design, replat it with the necessary drainage easements to accommodate that, and get the system in place. So I think we need to hear from them.
Commissioners, do you have any questions before we turn it over?
Yeah, I think this is something we need to find a good solution for here. I went out and drove through the subdivision and walked a lot of it. There's a lot of nice vegetation out there. There's a lot of pine flatlands. There's a lot of palmetto scrub. I saw all kinds of animal tracks, and it's a shame we're eventually going to have to fill that at some point down the road for homes, but I can't see any reason why we would want to destroy that habitat just for the sake of fill. It is the native natural vegetation that's been there for years. I'm not sure there's a real threat of it becoming a wetland. It is all sandy pine habitat. There are no homes in there, so by not moving forward, we're not impacting any residents. And I just think this is something where government needs to come together and find a reasonable solution and work forward with the applicant. So that's kind of just where I'd like to see us go with this, and hopefully we can work something out. But it'd be a shame just to start filling those lots for no good reason and destroying that habitat.
Commissioner O'Brien, I agree with you 100%. I drove up there last week to take a look at it, and like you said, I'm not an engineer, but looking at it, it certainly doesn't look like wetlands in how it needs to be filled. Right. It looks dry. It looks almost like a coastal scrub almost. And but not being an engineering, not understanding exactly where that water would drain in that general area, I understand that there's reasons why county staff has some concerns, and if we can address those concerns so that we don't have to go in there and clear those lots and then fill them up, I think it'd make a more aesthetically pleasing community.
Oh, absolutely.
Without a doubt. And so I'm right on point with that. Yes.
Yeah, the main thing in here that gave me pause on this page 2 or 260 was that should lot filling not occur, the developer can shift the responsibility to the homeowners association, which will be ill-equipped to follow through. And I agree with everything you and Commissioner O'Brien have said, but my concern also is the people buying these lots, and even though there's only 4 of them, there's 4 people that have invested for their future in those lots, and I think they need to be protected.
Mr. Taylor, if you could give your name and address for the record and help us with that concern.
Thank you. Jim Taylor of the Rossway Moore firm here in Vero Beach, 5070 North Highway A1A. I'm a lawyer in town. I represent Foster IRC LLC, the developer of Huntington Place, and really is unnecessary for me to repeat some of what, frankly, has already been said very candidly, and I appreciate those comments, because that, in my view, adequately summarizes the situation in two respects. Number one, this is a 141-lot subdivision west of town off of Kings Highway. Only, in fact, 3 lots have sold. There have been 4 sales. One of those lots was resold. The county imposed the lot fill requirement in January of 2007, and the requirement was that the lots be filled, as Mr. Collins has indicated, to 75% of finished grade within 2 years. Now, that requirement, while not something, of course, that was seen as, by my clients, as being necessarily palatable or even exciting, they were willing and prepared to accept it because they understood the county's concerns. At the same time, of course, that was done at a time when there was a sense that our economy was robust and that lot sales would occur with some acceleration, and again with the same sort of vigor that all parties anticipate when they do a development. Unfortunately, that didn't occur. The bottom effectively fell out of the market at about that time in January of 2007, and as I've said, only 3 lots have been sold, and the developer still owns 138 lots. It is a beautiful subdivision. There's a tremendous amount of natural vegetation out there. Lot filling would result in, as Mr. O'Brien has pointed out, lot filling would result in a destruction, effectively, of that natural habitat and the natural beauty of the subdivision, and effectively would result in a sort of desert-like effect being created. As a consequence, and through discussions with staff, the developer is prepared to work with staff very much in a manner consistent with Mr. Collins' suggestions as necessary of replatting to deal with the drainage concerns that have been interposed by staff. While Foster believes that those drainage concerns are minimal and are very specific, they're prepared to deal with those issues with staff. Obviously, with the 2-year period and that anniversary date approaching, and the fact that $1.762 million, nearly $2 million, has been pledged, that is, a cash pledge was made by Foster to support the letter of credit. If the letter of credit is called, frankly, it may have an absolutely disastrous effect upon Foster, which of course would have a disastrous effect upon the subdivision, and of course those few purchasers who have purchased lots in the subdivision. We would like to see, quite honestly, we'd like to see a 2-year extension. And that would give the breathing room that would make my folks feel comfortable, and that's effectively what we're seeking. At the same time, we're looking for any extension. So effectively, we're throwing ourselves at the feet of the commission in an effort to gain some sort of extension, in part to help us work with staff to get to some of these solutions that Mr. Collins has pointed out are possibilities and are on the plate. And as was visible today in the local paper, Foster is looking for the government to help, not harm or hinder, and that's effectively what we're asking the commission to do for Foster.
Can you help us with Commissioner Wheeler's concern specifically? Commissioner Wheeler, you read that one more time for Mr. Taylor.
Do you want me to read it again?
I'm familiar with it. What we tried to do, and the concern that existed at the time the Declaration of Restrictions was drafted, was to create a mechanism for the collection of money necessary to complete the fill. The concern is that depending upon the nature of the sales and how the sales would transpire over the 2-year period after the platting, the concern is that we might find ourselves in a situation where all but, say, 10 lots were sold. There had been a turnover of the association. Effectively, there had been robust building that had gone on in there, so filling was occurring naturally, and yet you might have, say, 10 recalcitrant individual private lot owners who would then refuse to fill their lots. All of this, of course, in the design of the Declaration of Restrictions was with an eye on robust sales. The idea being that if there were recalcitrant owners who didn't do their filling, then the association would then have the latitude and the power to march in, insist that it be done, or do it itself and then turn, as it would do with any sort of assessments, then lien the individual lots for the cost. So it was anticipated that if this occurred at all, when it occurred or if it occurred, the effect and what would actually transpire would be relatively de minimis, and therefore, why I appreciate Mr. Collins' concern. When we drafted the declaration, we didn't anticipate that as being a major issue because we anticipated it would effectively be done. Homes would be built, lots would be filled naturally as part of that development, and the issue would be moved.
So you take all that into consideration and extend the same thing back to the property owners?
Precisely.
So that would coincide with whatever you got from the commission where they'd not be
precisely. Whatever extension were granted by the commission, note the way I've framed that in terms of the extension being granted. I'm being very clever. That would apply as well to lot owners because the way that the declaration is crafted, the individual lot owners, after the initial sale of lots, have that same obligation to proceed with fill to 75% grade level within the 2-year period. And in fact, at least one owner is here today and can speak to that issue. It's Michael Thorpe, if you'd like to hear from him. Mr. Thorpe's office, of course, is also the brokerage firm that has been engaged to market the sale of the lots in the subdivision. We also have today, we have our engineers here, and we also have Tim, who is doing the environmental work on the project, and he can also speak to any issues you might wish to raise.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, what can Foster provide an extended letter of credit?
Yes, thank you. Forgive me for not raising that. Mr. Collins has raised it. We've talked to Fifth Third Bank because cash is standing as security for the letter of credit. Fifth Third will, and I unfortunately did not receive in yesterday's email or fax the letter from Fifth Third Bank. Foster has had discussions with Fifth Third Bank, and Fifth Third Bank, as we understand it, is prepared to extend the letter of credit. In fact, Fifth Third has extended for 1 year. There's a second letter of credit. And I received a letter yesterday from Fifth Third confirming that they've extended that particular letter of credit until April of 2010. So they're prepared to do that. And again, it's all founded upon the security. Mr. Collins' initial concern was that there might be some reluctance on their part to do it, but they're holding Foster's cash, and they're prepared to cooperate.
Any extension would be contingent upon appropriate.
We would expect that.
That is approved by the county attorney.
Precisely.
And this would give us the opportunity that I'm hearing you say is to go back and if we could work out some kind of a drainage system in there where we don't have to go and do the entire barren clearing. Mr. Collins, the only thing I still have a concern, like Commissioner Wheeler said. Are you comfortable with those that little line that Commissioner Wheeler has?
Well, what I'm hearing is we could do a modification to extend the contract, and the terms would be that they would get a 2-year extension, that the security supporting that extension would remain in place for 3 months beyond the contract default date, or perhaps 6 months, because that cure period, we'd have to work that out, and that they would have the ability to modify the design to avoid filling in the interim, coming up with some design solution that could be implemented through a replat, and that whatever extension the commission afforded to the developer would be passed through to individual lot owners through an amendment to the deed restrictions to have a commensurate extension for each lot owner to complete their fill obligation. I think if those are the terms, we can come back with a contract to implement that agreement within a week or two.
Chairman, I'll move what Attorney Collins just
and I'll second that.
Iterated.
Got a motion to approve the points that County Attorney Collins had delineated, and it was made by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Flesher. And now, any further discussion, Commissioner Wheeler?
Is that 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
2 years plus the 6 months for the cure.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Just to clarify that, the extension was for 2 years.
Yes.
But the letter of credit goes 2 years for the 6 months.
Yeah, 2.
That is correct.
Yes. And I guess actually, this will just have you bring this back to us for final approval.
Right. We'll bring it back and you can look at it again.
Yeah, so basically, we're just giving you direction to put this into place and come back to us.
Right.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. That concludes the county attorney's portion. Now we are on to commissioner matters, and we'll start with Commissioner O'Brien, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of weeks ago at the Chamber of Commerce hosted a leadership summit, and there's a lot of talk about the future of the county and what vision and things we had. And quite frankly, I realized that as a board of commissioners, we have no long-range plan, no strategic vision, and we don't even have a short plan. 2009 has just started, and yet I don't think as a board we have any consensus where we'd like to see the county go in this year and 5 years or 20 years. And I think I would like us to get together in a workshop format so each commissioner can submit a list of their goals for 1 year, 5 year, 20 years, and then we could all kind of running around and talk it out and brainstorm it and hopefully come to consensus on at least some of those goals so that instead of just, week by week, it just seems we're putting out fires and running around agenda to agenda. And I'd like to see us have a little bit better plan and some vision so we can direct staff and give some goals to achieve and things like that. And I think this would tie in very well with Commissioner Solari's next agenda item. Obviously, economic development would be a big part of a lot of the vision and planning. So I think if we could just combine those two into one, good workshop, and certainly we can have a lot of the economic presentations, and that would tie in a lot to our future goals for the county. So I just throw that out for discussion to see if we can get some support to combine these two as maybe even a day-long workshop where we're going to review all the economic stuff, and then we can all talk about some goals and vision we have, and hopefully come up with a rough roadmap for the county working forward. So,
yeah, I think that's right on point, and I think that dovetails right in with the economic summit that Commissioner Solari put on his very first agenda. And I won't steal your thunder coming because you will be next. But I think you're right on point. I mean, we have had a lot change in the past 2 months. Mm-hmm. One of them clearly has been with the downturn in the economy with Piper and some of our employers in the community, clearly with Dodgertown. But more importantly, I don't think it would be a bad policy, and I think it should be an appropriate time for this board, this commission, with some public input through a workshop process to give our county attorney, give our county manager a short list of goals. To say, here it is. This is what we, as a board, have put together. This is what we'd like to have accomplished short term, and then start working to long term. And I think instead of reinventing the wheel like you're talking about, to do it at the economic summit that Commissioner Solari put forward at the beginning really makes a lot of sense, and the timing is right for us to do something just like that. Commissioners?
Yeah, comments?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to, if we have the workshop and work on goals, I'd also like to, I brought it up before in the past, but I'd also like to put in that as we're going through our budgets and everything, looking at the entire picture, discussion from the audience and from us about budgetary priorities.
And I think that'd be a very good part of this. We could start with that, do some of the economic presentations, and that way we'd have that to look forward going forward. I think all that ties in very well, and I think getting the public involved is very good. And if we can sit down and informally do it in a workshop format, I think it'd be very productive.
Exactly, and I think that you're going to find that each one of us have something that I don't want to say is bothering us. We're going to have a lot in common, but there's also going to be some specific things that I've heard you make that comment several times to prioritize. Starting with health, safety, and welfare, and then the rest after that kind of thing. When we have to prioritize, I think that's right on point, and I think that's something that for under your matters at this workshop, and to hear from the public on your matters. I know. Some economic development things I've got, in my mind, they might be a little different than what the other commissioners are up here, but I'd like to have the opportunity to defend them in a form that is a relaxed form that we can kind of, think out loud as much as just make.
I think we do that a lot now.
Well, we do. And thinking out loud and thinking from the hip is, is different, isn't it? So, but I think you're right on point. Yes. Commissioner O'Brien, anything else?
No, I guess I'll leave it at this. If Commissioner Solari is agreeable to combining it, that's fine. If he wants to keep it separate, maybe after his matter, I'll come back and move that we select another day. But at this point, I'd say let's go ahead and move on to Commissioner Solari and see where he feels on everything here.
We'll do it.
The first thing is I think the idea is great. I don't know. Sorry, the idea is great. I think it's something we need to do. I'm not sure if the best thing to do is the same day or not. And that's just something I don't know. I'm not for or against it. If it was the same day, I had two dates in mind, January 27th, which was a Tuesday, and February 5th was a Thursday. If we're going to combine them just for planning purposes, I'd probably rather go for February 5th.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I had, just to give some ideas of the initial topics, which I thought would get us going, I would like to have a short update on Piper and Dodgertown, perhaps a longer update on the budget. That was a specific concern I had or thing I wanted to discuss. Want to perhaps have a short presentation from Workforce Development and the Chamber of Commerce. And there would have been a few other economic-related items that we would discuss, and then probably break out into some groups to discuss it some. So I envision probably about 4 hours with some sort of path forward on some of the economic development portions. But that piece, if we do it on the same day, then that piece of path forward, I think it'd probably be best to wait till late in the afternoon and combine that with the goals and objectives. So,
well, I would think if we're, I'm all for setting a whole day aside to do this. And the morning portion can be everything Commissioner Solari just went through. We take a lunch break, and then we come back in the afternoon and start hammering out how to implement some of those things and come up with a vision. So,
yeah, I'm happy enough to make the motion to go forward with that, and I'll do it one day. And
I'll second that.
On the date, I will suggest February 5th, but leave it up to the Commissioner.
Well, I think we'll see what staff, the availability of a space or the Richardson Center, and
I imagine we even have a conference center we could use.
We may have a conference center we could use.
Commissioners, one thing we were bringing an update on the budget and the revenues, that what we're seeing on the 20th of this month. We're going to bring the commission an update because we're seeing significant reductions in our overall revenues, and we were going to bring a budget update. In fact, I had a meeting yesterday on it to give you a picture. And I think you may want to look at that and then take time to absorb it for the meeting on the 4th, because you're going to see some significant budget revenue shortfalls.
I think that's a great idea too. But with that, can we ask if there's a 5-year pro forma with it, understanding that the future is not going to be like the 5-year pro forma, but the way the economy is going, any ideas that we may have formed 2 years ago have probably changed substantially, and a 5-year pro forma ballpark one-page type thing would at least help get us in the right ballpark going forward.
Yeah, I'm sure we've got some experts out there that'll be able to look 5 years down the road that we can.
I think Jason is quite capable of doing it. I think he's probably an activity he'd enjoy.
Yeah. Okay.
There were a lot of great ideas that were brought out at that meeting that was hosted by the chamber, and we broke out into groups, and some explosive ideas did come out, and I believe that there's a lot of committed business individuals that want to participate and make a positive future for our community. So, with that said, I think that's an excellent opportunity to have a full day with, and that's why I seconded your motion, to ensure that we have at least the workshop breakout session, and then bring this to some conclusion at the end of the day.
And I see this as complementing what the chamber did, and I hope then the chamber sees what we're doing as something that they can build on, because they have another date. I think it's scheduled for February 27th.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that one thing will just continue building on another, and that will help us move forward in a very positive manner.
Okay. That sounds great. We've got a motion for February 5th. First have to be economic, second have to be goals, is basically the way I understand it. And Commissioner?
Priorities.
Well, that would be goals. That'd be the second half of it. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passed unanimously, and clearly that will be open to the public, and would highly encourage their participation at all levels. Yes, Mr. Martins, you'd like to add something?
I assume you were in the process of closing out the meeting at this point in time. I would just like to list some correspondence associated with Vero Beach history, and we have the Imperial War Machine, and correspondence we have received back from the White House and from the state with respect to the Department of Energy.
Mr. Martin, I'll tell you what.
I just want to deliver it.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And also my final report on because I was asked on the county
Come on up, please. People can't hear you from back there.
To follow up and provide surveillance on the building's construction and cost schedule.
If you could, sure, absolutely, absolutely.
The title of the, I just would like to read the title. Copy of our Bermuda Trail research titled U.S. Hornet CV-8 and the Brown Bomber involves Indian River Naval Air Station connection to the Tokyo Raid, Midway, and the Battle of Santa Cruz. Okay, this is what we have at the British Imperial War Museum. And my final report is titled, The County's Administration Complex, a Watergate of Misinformation, leaves Commission in a situation of snafu.
Thank you, sir. And I don't believe Mr. Zork is here, is he? He unfortunately, I guess, had stepped out. Thank you, sir. All righty, thank you. And if therefore, if Mr. Zork's not here and there's no further business to be transacted at this time, I now declare this meeting adjourned.